I'm at this stage of life where I have to be careful that I'm not grumpy about everything. you know, you just get older and you get where I just don't have time for what seems like nonsense to me. And I way get irritated with people who make pronouncements that I don't think you can afford to make. I mean, how sure can you be? Well, it's been 10 years ago, this past January, that all came home to me. I had no idea I was going to die of a heart attack on January 10th, 2011, but I did, according to my friends and physicians, 4 times. Well, I look at what John has written and I think, okay, to me, this tells me in fact, it tells me a good bit about John's maturity. And it's a little thing, and I don't need to make it any bigger than it really is, but it's worth looking at. It's in the last, his very last words to the church, where he writes this to the dear lady and her children. We take that to be her church, or God, God's church. And if you look at what evidence there is of who that church might have been, odds favor that it was a church either in Ephesus or near it in that region. And Ephesus, by the way, is in modern-day Turkey. I sometimes forget that before Turkey was the Turkey we know it to be, mainly Islamic, and in fact overwhelmingly so, it was a seedbed of Christianity. Okay, John writes in 2 John verse 12, I have much to write to you, but I do not want to use paper and ink. And we talked about that. Instead, I hope to visit you and talk with you face to face so that our joy may be complete. And here's the little nugget. I hope to visit you. See, I sometimes hear evangelists and preachers and Bible teachers coming across with what God told them. I know this. You count on this. You know what? Unless it's in print in my Bible, I don't think I can count on it, right? Of all people, John, one of the original 12 apostles, should have had some pipeline to God where he could say, well, God's told me I'm going to get to see you, so plan on. No. He says, I hope that I hope to visit you and talk to you face to face. It's a deal with me, and it may not matter to you at all. Good for you if it doesn't, because it can just, for me, it creates a hiccup. I struggle with the whole, I know God's told me. Now, here, part of my struggle is this. If I could just write it off and go, no, he didn't, that'd make it simpler. I don't think I can just write everybody off. What if God really did tell them? Well, okay. Here's a significant thing about that, in my opinion. Okay, God told you. He didn't tell me. So let's think through, what does that mean? I get in trouble with this because I do have friends who I don't know for sure how or what form their sense of God talking to them comes to them in, but they talk about it often. God told me. And I don't have any reason to distrust them. They are close to Christ. They are following him with their whole heart. They study Scripture. So it's not like I can say, well, they're kooks or quacks or nuts or, I'm not sure. Find myself both cranky and not sure a lot these days. I'm not sure exactly what to do with this thing God told me. Well, here's where I am. I reflect on a passage from the book of James where James says, hey, you know what? Those of you that are saying today or tomorrow we're going to go to such and such city and do business and make money, and he said, you don't know. A very important little phrase. What is your life? It's just a mist. Here today and then gone. What you should say is, if the Lord wills it, we will go and do. I look at that and think, okay, I believe in my life, I want the primary condition for my decisions, plans, hopes, and dreams to be if the Lord wills it. I have to leave control in his hands. Okay, I'm getting kind of far afield from my hope to visit you face to face, but I think that's important. John didn't take for granted that just because he wanted to see them face to face, it was going to happen. Now that's a whole bunny trail all on its own. There are a lot of Christians who think just because they want it, then God's obligated to come across with it. This is an entitlement mentality that stifles and stymies actual spiritual growth for a lot of Christians. And I'm not even talking about these outliers way out there. I'm talking about Christians who are sincere, but they missed the memo that just because you want it, God's not obligated. If the Apostle John didn't treat his desires in that way, it seems like maybe it'd be a good idea for us not to. Now, the other side of that coin, it is good and right to hope for these things. John didn't write, I hope to see you, visit you, and see you face to face, but, this kind of stuff never happens for me, so, No, it's okay to have hopes. What are your hopes? What are your dreams? Now, I mean, that happens on lots of levels, and most of us, even if we don't consciously think about it and create a catalog of inventory, most all of us have hopes and dreams, at least desires, for the various aspects and venues of our lives. For instance, if you're a parent, you have hopes for your kids. Well, those hopes are probably connected directly to your hopes about your own parenting skills, that you would make as few mistakes, as few errors in judgment as possible, and that you would do course correction all along the way, and you hope that your kids are going to be good, responsible, godly adults when they grow up, who will raise their kids to be good, godly, responsible adults when they grow up, and on it goes. Your marriage, you have to have hopes. You have to have dreams. Now, a lot of people that I read and hear, what they're promoting and teaching, talk about hopes as second class to goals. That goals are way better than hopes. Well, no, I don't think they're way better, but they are different. Now, here's how they differ. My hope is a desire. It's a dream. A goal is a dream with a deadline. In other words, a goal can be quantified. When will it happen? How will I know it has happened? Who will be involved? What will be the outcome? How measurable outcomes? A hope, none of that measurement comes into play yet. Hope is biblical. Paul the Apostle said three things will endure: faith, hope, and love. Now, faith and hope are strongly connected, because one of the things that promotes hope and sustains hope is faith. Hope is this dream, the desire, and faith is belief. No hope that I can think of ever comes to pass without faith. And as you look at what Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, where this important idea comes from, at the end, it's the very last thing in that chapter, although Paul didn't write in chapter. So, well, anyway, these three remain: faith, hope, and love. Well, all of chapter 13 is very explicit that if what I do in faith, by faith, is not done in love, it doesn't matter. I mean, he uses a couple of real interesting word pictures. Clanging cymbal, right? It's meaningless. Okay. Faith, hope, and love. When they are together in unity, they set us up for the best things, the most sustainable things in life. So again, back to map out, and don't be rigid, but map it out. One of the ways I think it's legitimate to do this is think about your roles. Are you married? Then you're a spouse. Do you have kids? Then you're a parent. You're a child, even if your parents are no longer living. And if you have siblings, then you're a brother or a sister. You're an employer or an employee. Then what else do you do? Well, I'm a writer. I'm a musician. I'm a counselor. I'm a papa, which I love dearly. But these roles in my life, it's right for me to have hopes and dreams for what will happen within those roles. Now, what I don't believe about hope is that I have the hope and I sit back and it will happen. Again, I'm going back to the idea that just because it's something you want, that doesn't obligate God. There are times when my hope is I'm hoping for the wrong things. And it is good, that hope, that God doesn't obligate himself to fulfilling those hopes, because most of those kinds of hopes would make me not only just not better, they would make me worse as a person, less mature, less solid as an individual, as a being. What are your hopes? Now, where's your faith? It needs to be in the only one who ultimately has the power to bring my hopes to fruition. And I have this, because of faith, I have this fabulous privilege of partnering with him as we pursue these hopes. All of it has to be bound together in love. Well, it's all been up in the ethereal clouds today. And we got just one more phrase, and then we close the book out. We'll do that next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.